So today we are talking about abortion, and we're going to see if God actually cares about unborn babies. Now, my name is Morgue, and I am an ex-Christian and survivor of RTS, which is religious trauma syndrome, and I'm sure, as you know, that it's very likely that Roe versus Wade will be overturned. It's not a sure thing yet, but it's looking like it's very, very likely. And the big argument here all stems with religion, that apparently God cares about the lives of unborn babies, and we are going to see if that is indeed true, because most people have no idea what is in this thing. They think it's relatively benign, that it's a book full of, love and peace and all that, but it actually is not. I am an ex-Christian. I've studied this thing back to front, and I'm going to show you what God actually has to say about babies in here. Now, before we get started, I want to talk about some other issues that are very, very important, and that's just the loss of rights in general, because if you think that it's just going to be about abortion, you are dead wrong. If this gets passed and we start losing rights with regard to abortion, we are going to lose other rights extremely fast as well. It's just one of many that's on the agenda of those who subscribe to mainstream Christianity on how they want to change this world for the worse. And again, I'm going to be explaining this to you because I know firsthand. I was taught this growing up as a Christian. So if we take a look right here first, let's just jump right into this. As we talk about this leaked Supreme Court opinion overturning abortion rights. And it foretells the religious extremist assault on our democracy. And, people might think, oh, this is an overreaction. No, it's not. Again, I grew up in this. I know exactly what is taught, and I know the agenda very well. So let's just start taking a look. Americans United for Separation of Church and State, President NC. And by the way, I really want to emphasize what is in here. All right, we have a lot to look about. We have a lot to look at about what's actually in the Bible with regards to what we're talking about, and it's damning. So, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, President and CEO Rachel Lasser issued the following statement in response to reports of a leaked Supreme Court opinion regarding Roe versus Wade. So, Justice Alito's draft opinion makes clear that this ultra-conservative Supreme Court will soon abolish the constitutional right to an abortion. The right to an abortion is a civil and human right that is essential to our health, equality, and freedom. Abortion bans are an attack on religious freedom. And see, this is what's interesting here. Okay, so this person, right? So this is the president and CEO of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. And what's interesting here is that their argument is actually for freedom of religion, because essentially what they're saying more or less is that if you put into law something that favors one religion, such as Christianity, that's no longer freedom for religion because it's favoring Christianity, right? Because other religions don't have a say. What about Satanism, right? Why? See, obviously, there's not a freedom for religion if the government is favoring the rules and laws of one religion over another. So they are this particular group is for the separation of church and state for the freedom of religion, and I think that's what's really interesting about this argument here is that it's not even coming from an anti-religious standpoint. It's coming from a freedom for religion standpoint. Now, I am anti-mainstream religion, absolutely, 100%, but I think that is interesting nonetheless. So the right to an abortion is a civil and human right. This is essential to health, equality, and freedom. Abortion bans are an attack on religious freedom. They attempt to impose one religious viewpoint on all of us. Justice Sotomayor made that clear when she asked Mississippi about the justification for its abortion ban. And this is, quote, "How is your interest anything but a religious view? Religious freedom demands the right to an abortion so people can make their own decisions according to their own principles." And that's exactly another extremely powerful point. Making abortion legal is just about people being able to choose. If your religion says that you should not have an abortion, then don't. But you're trying to impose your religious view on the entire country. And that is the problem. That is the issue when separation of church and state is fundamental to America. So the end of Roe is just the beginning, right? This is incredibly important. Next on the hit list are a broad array of protections for personal liberty. The same line of attack Alito uses on Roe and Casey can also be employed against contraception, interracial marriage, marriage equality, and basic LGBTQ rights. The religious extremists and their lawmaker allies who helped pack the Supreme Court under Trump are willing to destroy our democracy to force all of us to live by their narrow beliefs. They want a nationwide abortion ban. They will come for contraception. They will come for marriage equality and LGBTQ rights. They will come for racial justice. They will not be satisfied until they have codified a white Christian nation. The foundational principles of separation of church and state safeguard our right to live and believe as we choose. Our laws do not allow anyone to use their religious beliefs to harm others. Allowing one person's religious belief to dictate another person's medical decisions is the very definition of harm. We'll say it again. Reproductive freedom is religious freedom. A couple things here. Now, one, you know that I am against mainstream religion in general, but this is a very powerful argument and a very important argument for the context of the current state of the world that we are in. This is the favoring of one religion over another, and this particular religion has an agenda. If you look what's going on in like Afghanistan and religions that are areas that are run according to a religion, you can see what negative effects has there. You know, women not being able to have an education, women being lesser than men, having to, dress a certain way, all that. If you think that that's just, something that couldn't happen over here, this abortion ban occurs, it's just one step closer to that. And you might think, that's far-fetched. No, it's not. I was raised in a Christian household, and it's what the Bible teaches is absolutely terrible. It teaches that women are second to men, that men are above women, that women are not allowed to teach. They must remain silent in places like the church, and they are viewed as being lesser than men because they ate from the apple, but that they can save themselves through childbirth. And this is the New Testament, by the way, not the Old Testament. And that's just one example. Yes, I was taught as a Christian that women have to listen to men. And I was also taught that anyone partaking in LGBTQ, anyone that is, any of those things, are sinful and evil and are going to hell. And so this is not an overreaction. This is something that everyone needs to know and be prepared for. And the issue is that people mostly think that, Christianity is relatively benign, it's fine. It's just a set of nice ideas. No, it's not. It's packed with horrible violence, sexism, homophobia, and we're going to be looking at ones that have to do with babies and children in here. And the issue that really people need to understand is that this is people go, I know all these different, Christian groups, and they're so nice. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're nice or not. They have an agenda to impose their religious views on the world. And if you think that that's not true, you're deluding yourself. And another problem that arises is that in today's cultural climate, it seems as taboo to speak out against religions. Like social media platforms, of which I am on, makes it extremely difficult to criticize religion. When you criticize religion, you're looked at as being, you're not being inclusive. Religion itself is not inclusive. Religion itself, when it says that women are second to men, when it says that people who are gay should be killed, when it has all these, just this list that is so long of all these atrocities, I'm not going to respect that. It does not deserve respect. Would you respect the beliefs of a Nazi? No, of course not. Well, but I know some, they're so nice to me. It doesn't matter. If there's a system that a certain race is better than another, obviously that's horrible and it should not be included. If you have a religion that teaches that women are second to men and that gay people should be killed, it's not okay in any sense of the word at all. And it's completely And I have to, honestly, this is whenever we talk about this sort of thing, it's very triggering for me because I do have, religious trauma syndrome. I grew up in all this. So whenever we talk about things that have to do with religion, it's a little difficult. But on top of that, we're talking about something that also is violating the rights of women and anyone that has a uterus. And this also is very upsetting to me. So it's twofold. But let's continue here. And I just really want to emphasize, though, right? Don't just let it pass by. If you think that it would just end here, it's not. It's just the beginning. And I want you to, really think about how we need to have an open criticism on religion and not make it this some taboo thing to talk about, Christianity or Islam or Judaism or any of these mainstream religions that impose laws on individuals or a view of the world that takes away freedoms. We should always be able to criticize ideologies. Now, we're not criticizing individual people. We're not saying like, oh, I hate so-and-so. No, we're just talking about the idea itself. We're talking about the religion itself. And, like we say in Hyperianism all the time, we don't hate people, we hate ideas. All right, so we're not hating any group of people. We are hating the ideas that are being imposed and taking away the freedom and the rights of others. So anything, I don't care what it calls itself. If you're saying that women are lesser than men, if you're saying that, gay people should be killed, if all these different things, I'm going to be against it. And I'm going to be against it vocally. And I'm going to stand up against that shit. Because it is what is, it is what is right and what is rational. So, let's continue because we have a lot to talk about and this is upsetting. So let's take, and this is going to tie into what we start taking a look at in the Bible. It says, sorry, Christian nationalists, but the Declaration of Independence is not your friend. So the Oklahoma House of Representatives has passed a near total ban on abortion. Under the terms of the measure, which has already passed the state Senate, anyone who performs or attempts to perform an abortion would face up to 10 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. The procedure would be permitted only in certain crisis pregnancies. That is bad enough. Now consider how Senator Nathan Dahm, the measure's sponsor, defends it. He cited the Declaration of Independence. And this is a quote. The Declaration of Independence states that our rights come from our Creator. And see, a lot of people may even think, oh, this isn't about religion. It's absolutely about religion. This is the sponsor of the law, Senator Nathan Dahm, saying, giving his reason for it. The Declaration of Independence states that our rights come from our Creator, and that among those rights is the right to life, and that governments are instituted to secure those rights. Dahm said in a media statement. It is far past time that the government of the state of Oklahoma defend the right to life. Dahm's statement is only the latest in a string of Christian nationalist attempts to suppress or to press the Declaration into service for their theocratic agenda. It doesn't work. Here are the 3 reasons why. First, the Declaration isn't a governance document. It's an eloquent statement to the world, giving notice that America intended to be free from the British Crown and soliciting the support of other nations. The Constitution is our governing document. Why doesn't Dahm cite that? Probably because it provides no sanctuary for his theocratic dreams. Second, the Declaration is far from a Christian nationalist blueprint. There are 4 deistic references in the Declaration, but they are exactly that, deistic. And for those who don't know, theism is the belief in, like Christianity is a theism. They believe in a God, it's a conscious God, a loving God, and has like all these plans for you, and like a supposed loving God, not actually. He sent his son to die for you. This is a theistic idea of God. Deism is the view of God as this, it could just be a force. It doesn't have any conscious interest in you. It doesn't have any sort of, effect on your life. It's just a force. That's what deism is. It's not a personal God. It's an impersonal God. So, and there are 4 references in the Declaration to a deity, but they are deistic. Terms like nature's God, creator, or supreme judge of the world, and divine providence aren't uniquely Christian and don't even hint at an officially Christian government. So it's really important to understand that just saying nature's creator or supreme judge of the world or divine providence is not specifically referencing Christianity. It's just the idea of some sort of deistic force. And I also want to mention that many of our founding fathers were part of Freemasonry. And a lot of Christian America's values were based on Masonic ideas. And so for those who don't know, the Masons do have an idea of God, but the idea of God is not the Christian God. It is a force of which every single God that a person believes in is just one interpretation or aspect of it. So for example, in like Masonry, whether you're a Christian or Muslim or Jewish or a Jew or a Buddhist or Hindu or whatever, like it doesn't matter, right? Whatever God you pray to or serve or worship, you acknowledge that it is just one aspect or an interpretation of the true force of nature, the true force of reality. So there wouldn't be a conflict, right? You would in Masonry, say you have like a Muslim and a Christian. In Masonry, they wouldn't be in conflict with each other because they would go, oh well, we're just seeing different aspects of the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with that stance, or whatnot. But what I'm saying is that this is the type of idea of a deity when it's being referred to in these government documents. And by the way, Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration, is responsible for only the first two of these references. The other two were added by an editing committee. So third, the Declaration is a document that opposes tyranny. It's the expression of a people yearning to toss off the yoke of an oppressive foreign government. It is inconceivable that a document that so strongly condemns political tyranny would give a safe harbor to spiritual tyranny. Vice President of Strategic Communications, Andrew L. Siddell, dissects the language and meaning of the Declaration in depth in his 2019 book, The Founding Myth: Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. Writes Seidel, Jefferson, Adams, and Franklin and the Continental Congress could have chosen to root the entitlements, endowments, appeals, and protection in Jesus Christ or any other specific God, but they did not. Instead, they carefully selected references that do not specify any religious denomination or sectarian belief. These were deliberate men who knew they were drafting a monumental and historic document, and they chose their words carefully. As University of Chicago constitutional scholar Jeffrey Stone put it, in acknowledging nature's God, the creator and divine providence, the Declaration carefully and quite consciously eschewed any invocation of the Christian religion. The Declaration of Independence is one of the greatest statements of human liberty ever penned. It's all about freedom. That's why it's so ironic to see it being used to buttress policies that subject people to narrow and repressive forms of theological control. So main takeaway from these things that I want to get to, and it all ties together, is that you have these attempts to establish laws in America that are founded on Christian beliefs. And they want to make America and everyone within it follow their Christian ideology. As well as that you can see that they quote from the Declaration of Independence when there is absolutely no support for it in there whatsoever. So here's the idea, though, because the whole belief, right? Why are Christians opposed to abortion? It's because they believe, because remember, I was taught this, so this is what I was taught, because I was taught, there's always some abortion controversy going on, and so I was taught this growing up when we had discussions about abortion. And abortion was probably like one of the worst things imaginable. Not the worst imaginable, but it's very, very high on the list of things that are condemned. And the reason why that's given in Christianity is because God, that this is a life created by God, right? So first of all, this is a life created by God. So, it would be a sin to end that life. And also that God has a plan So the fact that someone got pregnant means that that was part of God's plan. So then to have an abortion would be to go against God's plan and is a sin. But keep in mind, yes, this also applies to a woman or anyone that has been raped, anyone with a uterus that has been raped. Yeah, they would teach. They do teach, right? Like this would be like, oh, that's a really sad thing that happened, but it's all part of God's plan. God has a plan for that child. And so, yes, even in cases of rape, it's like, oh, well, too bad that happened, but you still have to have the kid because that's God's will. So the problem is that in Christianity, it's all founded on the idea that apparently God cares about unborn babies, but does he actually, right? Do you really think that God cares about unborn babies? Well, here's the thing. If we take a look at what's in the Bible, we have a plethora of times where God kills children. So first of all, if we take a look at the story of, Moses and Egypt. So in that story, God, because, Pharaoh hardens his heart and won't let Moses' people free and go and all that, God has the firstborn child of everyone in Egypt killed. So the firstborn child of every person in Egypt, and not just the people, mind you, but even the animals, all firstborn infants are killed. So let me ask you, does that sound like a God that cares about children? Let's see. In another verse in the Bible, God sends bears to murder children, a whole group of them. God sends bears to murder them. Why do you think he did that? Because they made fun of a prophet for being bald. That's what they did. There was just a group of kids. They laughed at the prophet because he had a bald head. God sends a bunch of bears and rips them to shreds. You really think God cares about unborn kids? He doesn't care about ones that are born. You really think he cares about unborn ones? So how about when God commanded Joshua to kill all the children in Jericho? God commanded Joshua to kill all the children in Jericho. They didn't really include that part in VeggieTales, did they? That was an episode of VeggieTales about Jericho and the wall. Yeah, they kind of missed to include that part. So do you really think God cares about unborn babies? So also, if you think about the flood, when God flooded the world, every child in the world, including pregnant women, were drowned. Except for if you were part of, Noah's family on the ark. Everyone was killed, including innocent children and unborn babies. He killed Bathsheba's newborn child, and he accepted Jephthah's daughter as a burnt virgin sacrifice. God has his own son killed, by the way. God impregnates a woman, has his own kid, murders it, and has him killed. So also, let's see, God ordered Abraham to kill his only son as a sacrifice. God told Abraham, hey, I want you to kill your son for me. I want you to go present him as a sacrifice to me. Now, I want to make a couple points about this. So first of all, God did stop Abraham at the very last minute, because a lot of Christians will object. They'll go, well, he stopped him at the last minute. But he commanded Abraham to do this, and Abraham got so close to doing it that he had the knife raised over Abraham, over his son Isaac. He was about to do it, and then yes, God did stop him. But I want to tell you that this story of Abraham being willing to murder his child just because God said to do it is taught in the Abrahamic religions as the ultimate sign of faith. I was taught that, we should all be like Abraham. It's this. They're called the Abrahamic religions. Abraham is an extremely important figure of faith, and we all should have the faith to be like Abraham, and to be willing to go that far. Now, by the way, Christians often object to this and go, well, God stopped him at the last minute. Well, what about Jephthah's daughter? He didn't have a problem accepting a burnt virgin sacrifice. He didn't stop Jephthah, so that argument doesn't apply whatsoever. Because, yeah, sure, he might have stopped Abraham, but he certainly did not accept Jephthah when, for that barbecue. He thought that was perfectly acceptable. Now, also, I want to mention this, right? And this one is incredibly damning. And all this is extremely frustrating. So if we take a look at... where was this? Hold on. Let me, because I'm going to read this to you, but I want to give you the verse because this is in Hosea 13:16. All right. So in the Bible, Hosea 13:16. Let me just read this to you. Samaria shall bear her guilt. So this is a city, right? Samaria is a city. Samaria shall bear her guilt because she has rebelled against her God. So Samaria was a city. And they started worshiping other gods, right? They were not only just worshiping the God of the Bible, they were worshiping other gods. And God was quite upset at this. And so Samaria shall bear her guilt because she had rebelled against her God. They shall fall by the sword. Their little ones shall be dashed in pieces and their pregnant women ripped open. So you have apparently a ban on abortion that's founded on the religious idea of Christianity, that God cares about unborn children. Yet he murders countless children in the Bible, going so far as to having little ones dashed into pieces and pregnant women ripped open. Now, I think that is a little more extreme, having pregnant women ripped open, than what occurs in a clinical setting today. And it is beyond hypocritical to try and use their religion as an excuse for this ban, when in their religion there is God quite just basically passing out abortions, ripping pregnant women open. Is that not quite the worst possible type of abortion one could imagine? So, like I said, all this is very upsetting, very triggering, because you have religion seeping into the government and ripping away laws from women and those who have a uterus, and it won't stop there. If you think it will stop there, you're deluded. It will move on to contraception. It'll move on to interracial marriage. It'll move on to LGBTQ rights. Absolutely, for sure. Gay marriage, all that. It will move on to that. And it's absolutely awful. I mean, again, you think that it will stop there, and it won't. Like I said, there are so many verses in the Bible saying that women are second to men. Women, it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to remove at some point women from having the power to vote or be in places of where one could make decisions. I don't think that's the one they would go for next. That would be one quite down the road, but it would clearly be part of their agenda. So the issue is that we really need to be extremely critical of religion and know what's going on and be educated. And we need to stop tolerating intolerant beliefs. We need to stop making it taboo or culturally unacceptable or part of cancel culture to not be able to be critical of these religions that teach horrible, sexist, homophobic violations of human rights. And we need to have a world where, at the very least, there is a separation of church and state, and one religion is not imposing their views upon the world and upon another. Hey, if your religion says abortions are wrong, fine. Don't have an abortion. But don't try and tell other people what to do, because some sick, murderous book doesn't even say that it's wrong, by the way. Quite the opposite. There's plenty of child deaths and ripping pregnant women open in here. But don't try and impose on other people just because one decided one day to make it a part of your religion. All right, so I am going to, I think, end this here because honestly, it is very upsetting, and I'm going to get more upset than I need to, and that would ultimately more upset than would ultimately be productive. But please keep that in mind. Be aware, do your research, see what is actually taught in these books, actually taught in these religions. Be critical of it, stand up against it, realize it does immense psychological damage to children, religious trauma syndrome. Realize that it does immense damage to our world as far as imposing violations of human rights on others in the forms of laws that are rooted in nothing but religious ideology. And again, I don't care what you call yourself, right? I don't care what group it comes from. I don't care if it's a religion. I don't care if it's a philosophy. I don't care if it's a political movement, whatever. If it has these atrocities within it, these violations of human rights in it, if they're saying women are second class to men, if they're saying homosexuals should be killed, if they're having, racial inequality, any of that, it's absolutely abhorrent and should be abolished, let alone be allowed to be put into law. So if you're interested in all this, I have a lot more videos on my channel about growing up as a Christian and religious trauma syndrome and why religion is such a dangerous and damaging thing to our world. So definitely check that out. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports on Patreon, especially, let's see, Renaissance Fairy, Trent, Cassidy, Michael, Evie, Alan, Angela, Maria, Brian, Chubby Bunny, High Expectations Counseling, Jordy, and Nicole. Thank you all so much. If you enjoy my work or if it felt like you learned something from my work, consider supporting on Patreon. It's the best way to support with all the censorship on YouTube and Facebook. The link will pop up right over here. You'll get access to our weekly secret live streams and our hidden Discord server, The Citadel. And I appreciate it very much. Thank you.